Good evening, Falmouth crew. Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. My name is Baldwin. I am an Olympic sailor and 2 times Olympic sailing coach. I was an unlikely Olympian. I hated sport at school. And the first team I was ever on was the Olympic team. So I achieved the seemingly impossible, and then at my peak, I was ranked #2 in the world. Representing Team GB was beyond a dream come true. It was the most amazing experience, the biggest adrenaline rush imaginable. The Olympic flame is so symbolic of the burning desire to achieve a goal that excites you. I've lived my life by the motto, dream, believe, achieve. And the quotes, if you can believe it, you can achieve it. Or if you fail, that success is a journey, not a destination. And there has never been a more important time in history to believe that change is possible. My bubble of contentment burst in January 2019, when I learned that the planet is on the state of climate and ecological emergency. How? I didn't know this. I studied sciences at college and university, and yet, well, from that moment, I have focused pretty much all my time on learning everything I can about the problems and the solutions and acting on my knowledge. The fire of desire relit inside me. I had a new goal, defending life on Earth. Should be easy enough, right? I mean, the motivational speaker did say to set big, scary goals. They said if your goals don't scare you, they aren't ambitious enough. My initial reaction to learning that the planet is on the brink of catastrophic runaway climate change was first to panic. I freaked out. I screamed and shouted because it seemed no one was listening. And then I channeled my despair into action. First, making all the personal eco swaps at home, reducing my own carbon footprint, localizing my life, transitioning to a vegan diet. Then I looked to help my community to restore nature and decarbonize. I established a group called Portland for the Planet, through which we planted thousands of trees, the mental health benefits of which I can't promote highly enough. Established a community food garden. The socializing and the support is probably as important to us as the sustainable food growing. I organised an eco fair, literally just using bits of cardboard to communicate the messages and educate my community. We had a clothes swap. Amazingly, everybody left absolutely thrilled with the new items that they got. I was so shocked to learn how much water it takes to make just one t-shirt, one person's 3-year drinking supply. I've given talks to schools, empowered students, organised strikes and actions. I'm a huge advocate of people's assemblies, of deliberative democracy. There's so much needs to change, and involving people in the discussions and the decision-making process lessens resistance and increases consent. And the same is true of leading our country and the world through citizens' assemblies, which is XR's third demand. I highly recommend the Trust the People course to learn how to use these skills within your community. Got on board protesting, campaigning against a waste incinerator on my doorstep. Wales and Scotland have put a moratorium on all new waste incinerators. It's just England lagging behind, and I sincerely hope that they do put a stop to this as quickly as possible. I recommend getting involved in any local environmental issues. My local group organised regular community bike rides. The slogan on the banner, #BeTheChange. I'm involved with Champions for Earth, which is educating, empowering and inspiring athletes to use their platforms to speak out on environmental issues. And I'm part of the Green Party England and Wales Executive Campaigns Committee and on the Global Greens Climate Emergency Working Group. So I'm quite busy, but I have to say that the more I've learned about the problems, the more I've realised that it has to be this government now that makes the changes, that forces the changes through. I've met there are far too many people either unwilling to voluntarily make the necessary changes, or are willing but are financially unable. The UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, the spokesperson for the world, has become more and more desperate in his communication. In his most recent speech in April, he called global leaders lying, dangerous radicals, setting fire to our only home. He said we're on a fast track to climate disaster, major cities underwater, unprecedented heat waves, terrifying storms, widespread water shortages, the extinction of 1 million plants and animals. And this is not fiction or exaggeration. It is what science tells us will result from our current energy policies. Guterres said that investing in new fossil fuels is moral and economic madness. 2 days after the latest IPCC report was released in April this year, in which it said that we needed to immediately and rapidly reduce emissions, now or never, today, not tomorrow. 2 days later, the UK energy strategy is released, containing within it 40 new fossil fuel licenses. They're pushing through new oil and gas, even a coal mine, new incinerators, expanding roads and airports. Their plan for reaching net zero has been found to be so inadequate that it was found to be illegal by the courts. The evidence couldn't be clearer that this government do not care about nature. And I would go as far as to say that they do not even care about their own children. Only 10% of MPs, and not a single prime ministerial candidate, of which there were 5 at the time, attended arguably the most important Zoom of their and our lives. The briefing by this country's climate experts that one brave man, Angus Rose, was prepared to die for. He was on hunger strike outside Parliament for 37 days before they agreed. When news of life on Earth being on track to be unlivable is confined to 1 square inch buried deep or not reported upon at all, we know that we are being utterly failed. And I refuse to bequeath a dying planet to my child. We are alive at the most critical time in the history of humanity. We're the first generation to know that we're destroying the living conditions of this planet, and the last that's able to do anything about it. We need to be courageous. We need the courage to stand up against those destroying the living conditions, those committing ecocide, those setting the rules, government officials bought out by fossil fuel executives, by the elites, by the billionaire media barons, and this justice system that seems to be designed to protect the real criminals, those with deep vested interests in the current destructive system. It's so deep that they're willing to destroy everything for everyone. We need to be brave. We need to be resolute in the pursuit of our goals, even when they seem insurmountable. Overcoming any challenges, finding a way. We have to find a way. Like elite athletes in pursuit of a goal, giving 100%. So we know that if we fail, we can accept it knowing that we did everything we could think to. No regrets. I'm motivated by one day having to look my son in the eyes and tell him what I did whilst there still was time to act. I need to be clear of conscience in that moment, able to tell him that I did everything I could think to. My love for my child is so strong that I would give my life for his. I would run out in front of an oil tanker to try to save his life. I did step out in front of an oil tanker in central London earlier this year to draw attention to Extinction Rebellion's immediate demand of no new fossil fuel licenses, subsidies, or investments from now. It was a nerve-wracking thing to do. I knew I risked arrest, but the consequences of inaction are far greater And I believe this to be a proportional response and morally right. Non-violent direct action has been repeatedly proven through history to be the most successful at forcing societal change. People and movements that we owe our rights and freedoms to today are seen as heroes and having been on the right side of history. But at the time, they were hated and vilified. I believe that Extinction Rebellion and Insulate Britain, Just Stop Oil will be vindicated and revered soon enough. Like, there's been a marked switch in the tone of quite a lot of media platforms recently that have gone from their vicious hate campaign against us to actually, are these guys heroes? And reporting on what messages we are trying to communicate instead of just how many people were arrested at each action. Here's just a few of the actions that I've been involved in with Extinction Rebellion, with Ocean Rebellion, blocking Fawley Oil Refinery just before COP26 that gained media attention across the world. At G7, involved with Scientist Rebellion, using my sport to communicate the messages on the equipment and in interviews that I gave. Spent a night in the Science Museum, that was good fun, and top right, locked on in Oxford Circus. That was the first action that I did that I was arrested at. With doctors and nurses, lawyers, scientists getting arrested, risking imprisonment to protect life. These are, respected professionals, and it gives me confidence that I am involved in the right movement when I see their involvement and their sacrifices. And then the endorsement of Antonio Guterres, who said in that same powerful speech that climate activists are sometimes depicted as dangerous radicals, but the truly dangerous radicals are the countries and companies pushing new fossil fuels. We owe a debt of gratitude to young people, civil society and Indigenous groups for sounding the alarm and holding leaders to account. We need to build on their work to form a grassroots movement so big it is impossible to ignore. NASA scientist Peter Kalmus is basically on panic mode, screaming repeatedly through social media to end fossil fuels now. And he says, we need 1 billion climate activists. We need more than 1 billion climate activists. We risk losing everything we love. Knowing all that I do gives me the courage to take direct action. I actually feel more relaxed on the front lines than I do sat behind a computer, because I know in that moment I'm doing everything I possibly can in order to try and stop this. So COVID proved that when there is political will, everything can change in an instant and overnight. It proved that when people understand the consequences and the threats, that they're willing to do incredible things, make incredible sacrifices to safeguard those they love. Making the necessary changes shouldn't be feared. It should be longed for. It should be demanded. Making the necessary changes would be the most beautiful chapter in humanity yet. It could be rewarding and fulfilling, and it will most certainly improve the living conditions for the majority. I like George Monbiot's private sufficiency, public luxury, reconnecting communities. To achieve this, we need to help ourselves to feel happy, because happiness enables us to access the parts of the brain that thinks up great ideas and can solve complex problems. And we need to be creative. And creativity gets switched off by feelings of stress and by being blocked by being busy all the time. So we need to give ourselves time to daydream, to come up with our greatest ideas yet. Each of you has huge opportunity to think up, make happen, be a part of the changes that we need to make to safeguard the living conditions on this planet. Find your purpose. Focus on your contribution to help you to stay positive, to avoid the paralysis of fear of the collective failure. Join Extinction Rebellion. Be on the right side of history. I just leave you with this quote that I find really helpful. from Dr. Jane Goodall. She says, imagine the world as a jigsaw. If you look at the whole picture, it is overwhelming and terrifying. But if you focus on your little part of the jigsaw and know that people all over the world are working on their little bits, that's what will give you hope. Because it's manageable, because it's achievable, because we can and will succeed. And then if not you, who? And if not now, well, it has to be now. So get imagining, get excited, because it's time to dream, believe, and achieve. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in September in Hyde Park. Good evening.